will start with the prayer before we start reading through the Torah here. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
Amen. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe. You have sanctified us through your commandments and commanded us to busy ourselves in things of Torah. And indeed, we have been busying ourselves in things of Torah because we are still in Breshit, actually. Genesis 19, I guess we're up to Genesis 19, verse 15.
Wait, what's the parasha?
We're not going according to parasha.
Yeah, but that number should be in a parasha.
It's Vayera.
Vayera? Okay.
It's Vayera.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, let me get my Bibles. Genesis 19, what, 16? Let's see.
Well, I think we should go back to line 12, just to verse 12, because it sets the stage, because we covered the fact that Lot is trying to protect the angels who appear as men in Sodom, and he pulls them into the entrance of his home, and at that point there is blinding light, and the community can no longer find the entrance to the house. And I think that's where we left off. And then there's a little discussion which we want to read in verse 12. If somebody would like to read that. I'll go ahead and get started. Then the men said to Lot, "Whom else have you here? Sons-in-law, your sons and daughters, or anyone else that you have in the city? Bring them out of the place, for we are about to destroy this place, because the outcry against them before the Lord has become so great that the Lord has sent us to destroy it." So Lot went out and spoke to his sons-in-law, who had married his daughters, and said, "Up, get out of this place, for the Lord is about to destroy the city." But he seemed to his son-in-laws as one who jests. So, I heard chuckles. Any comments? And why did you chuckle? Yes, Ruth Ann.
Okay, well, my translation says the son-in-laws were just betrothed. So possibly, they didn't know Lot very well. I mean, if they weren't married yet, we know his daughters were still living in his household, or at least some of them were. So maybe that's why the son-in-laws took it as a joke, because they really didn't know the man very well.
That's a good guess.
Okay, now are these, they're different, and here I am not smart enough, and our rabbis that are attending may be able to explain this. Are these the original two daughters that Lot was going to give away to save the strangers, or are these the same daughters that are married, or are these two extra daughters? And I think there's some discussion about this in the literature. And any comments? Either.
I'm not sure that it identifies specifically which daughters are, but I happen to have a a midrashic collection open next to me, so I'll look at this while you focus.
Okay, Steve, you had your hand up.
Yeah. And of course, my reading of this was this was really sort of Middle Eastern exaggeration anyway. He wasn't really intending to totally sacrifice his daughters to protect his house gets. It was just a demonstration of the importance of hospitality, and a little bit like the seller in the shuk who says when you're walking away, he says he's going to give it to you for free. He's not really going to give it to you for free. That's just an expression. That's just part of the culture. So, I don't think there was really any intention to give either married daughters or unmarried daughters away to the crowd. It was just a manner of speech.
Okay, yes, Larry.
As we hear the word Sodom, I heard that one of the biggest insults in the English language is to call someone a sodomite. And we have the word sodomy as a reference also. But also, so often I hear Sodom and Gomorrah, almost like they're joined together and have similar references to them. But so far, I haven't heard, or if we did, I didn't remember, Gomorrah mentioned. How did this junction of the two so often come together?
The neighboring towns or cities, I know that.
Verse 23.
Oh, so we're not there yet.
We're not there yet.
Okay.
Any other comments?
Yeah,
This point.
I have, in this, let's see. Mockery makes serious discussion impossible because every attempt to prove one's point is turned aside with a contemptuous joke. As sages have observed, one jest repulses 100 rebukes. Whatever that means. That's what this.
I just want to point out a little thing connected with the Ivrit, and Steve will help me. They,
I don't think you need help.
yeah, they thought that he was laughing, and we found the word laughing in Ivrit is kemetzachek. Tzachek, it's like the name Yitzchak, that when the angels came to see Abraham, we claim, but it's not true, that Sarah tzachaka. It's the shoresh tzachok, which is she laughed. It fits everything that you said. This is just my, my Hebrew wording that always affects what I say. But everything that was translated makes sense too.
Okay, so
Marty?
Yes, Rabbi.
I did find one quick, and admittedly it's a quick research, but one reference that says that one of Lot's daughters was married to one of Sodom's notable leaders. Now, whether that adds another layer to understanding the story is something else. But again, that's not based on any particular quote. It's in an imagination reference. And then there's a longer paragraph about it, but on how that was handled, and the way that he treated her or responded to a particular incident just corroborated the reputation of the Sodomites.
Okay, I came across something from another commentator that was speaking about the Babylonian Mishnah, and that Mishnah Torah, and it sort of tried to explain that Lot has 4 daughters, and that two are the 2 that are going to escape with Lot, but that 2, whether it's one or both being betrothed or married, one married or one betrothed, they are opting to follow their sodomite husbands or husbands to be thing, so 2 are going to stay behind, and 2 will eventually, we haven't gotten to that yet, 2 will flee with Lot. So
Right. And then spoiler alert, then as Lot and his wife and the rest of the family, the ones who do leave, as Lot's wife turns around, it's to see if the last 2 had finally decided to join them.
right, and that is one of the different what midrashes that is based on that what's in the mind of Lot, and so you have different commentaries, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
What's strange here is that the daughters take the in-laws, because we know, as it comes up, that Lot thinks that the world disappeared and he has to do what he has to do because no one else is there to do it, meaning to create another generation. If the sons-in-law were there, there wouldn't have been a problem. You understand? I mean, they didn't have to have sex to conceive another generation with their father, because they were the sons-in-law there, which never before I paid attention to it, and I think it's strange, or maybe they did not go. They thought that he was joking.
It's okay. This is more, and we have to tie what we haven't read yet with what we're reading now in order to try to get a better understanding. David, is that you?
Yes, sir.
That's
Shalom.
what I thought. Very good. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Good morning, David.
Good morning.
And Ricky, I thought your hand was up for a while.
Yeah, it was, because the Jewish Study Bible has a very simple sentence here about that, the daughters. Since Lot's 2 daughters mentioned in verse 8 are unmarried, so it sort of covers everything that everybody's been saying. These sons-in-laws are either engaged to them, so the Vulgate and Rashi, or married to 2 other daughters who die in the conflagration along with their husbands. So that sort of sums up like a little bit of what everybody was saying. You got
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful.
Yeah.
So, and now does somebody would any other comments about what we've just been reading, or if not, if somebody would like to read on, we would be now at
15.
Verse 15.
15. Okay.
We
I
embarrass. We embarrass sheep or Shemot?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. David, we're still back in Genesis,
Okay.
verse 19.
Chapter
No,
9.
chapter 19.
Chapter 19.
Chapter 19,
Verse
verse
15.
15.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, what we've been doing, David, is we've been sort of going over each verse in detail, or looking at some of the Hebrew, looking at different rabbinic interpretations, various sources, because each author of a commentary on the Torah has a slight variation on the English translation, and so we've been having some interesting discussions as a result of this. So anyway, we're at Genesis 19, verse 15.
So we don't make any good speed because
No.
we can tear apart one word in this.
That's right.
Yes.
We're having a
We
lot
know
of
we
fun.
have been.
That's right.
Okay,
So if somebody would like to read verse 15.
I can read, Marty.
Okay, thank you.
As the dawn was breaking, the two angels hurried Lot. Get moving, they said. Take your wife and 2 daughters who are here. You don't want to be swept away because of the city's sin. He hesitated. The strangers grabbed him, his wife, and his 2 daughters by the hand, leading them out, and left them on the outskirts of the city. God had shown pity on Lot. When the angel had led them out, he said, "Run for your life. Do not look back. Do not stop anywhere in the valley. Flee to the hill so that you not be swept away."
Okay, let's stop at that point. Any comments about this?
Yeah, mine says 2 remaining daughters. So, and Ruth Ann read the 2 daughters that were with him. So,
Yeah, mine says 2 remaining, but I know that
Yeah.
there are different commentaries.
that's
here.
why I just threw that out.
Any other? Yes, Steve.
Yeah, you know, it just demonstrates that it's really human nature to hesitate, to uproot yourself and leave. You know, case in point, Jews in Germany
Mhm.
saw what was happening and didn't want to leave. That's your life. It's not the easiest thing in the world to just pick up and go because somebody is telling you something.
That's true.
You know, so that's sort of a very human element to the drama here, that there is this element of hesitation all through the narrative that, you know, people are hearing it, but they think it's a joke and, you know, don't really
Contrasted
just want
to-
to go up and go ahead.
Contrasted
to
to
Abraham.
Abram and Sarai, who, when God says get up and go, they got up and went.
Right.
Right.
Very good point. Now, there are several hands that went up, and I just,
That's Joanne.
Joanne, yeah, your hand is still up. Go ahead.
Okay. What I was thinking about is not, when you said Germany, then I realized yes. But I am also thinking of the virus today. So many people are not really listening. In some ways, the angels, the doctors, etc., to really wear masks and not to have huge gatherings, etc. And it's very much like Lot. They're saying, well, let me just do this, but I won't do that, etc.
Good point.
Good point. Chris, you had your hand up.
Well, I think you're right. History repeats itself because it started with the Hebrews in Egypt. They also longed for the onions and leeks that they were in that country and they didn't want to go. So that's true. I think we just don't learn. And I agree with Joan too about the coronavirus. Yeah.
Yes, I thought that was very, very interesting. That what you said. Miri, did you have your hand up too?
I didn't, but I'll have.
Okay, I thought.
And this is important for what's going to come. Actually, what's going to come in the future, because we have an issue with translations. Here, there is a synonym. One is a malachim, and the other is a nashim.
Right.
So you have the word malach, that usually in English is translated as, this is a test.
Oh, angel.
As angels. But
An angel. And the word ish, modern Hebrew, is a human being, nothing special.
Right.
So now we have these things coming up when Abraham is told by 3 question mark. And then when Joseph goes for his brothers, again we hear that 3 Ishim comes. It's not the word that's translated as angels, but it is here synonym to angels. And then we have it again with Jacob when he fights, if you remember, when he struggles.
Yes.
Is
Yes.
changed. We have that again. So in the translations, we have to pay attention that in this little part, those words are synonym. Dibarti.
Interesting. Thank you. That really is interesting because of all of the different debates as we will get to those stories too. Thank you. Appreciate it. Yes, Gail, you had your hand up, and then Helene.
Now, this has been my, state of perplexion for the last couple of weeks, because we've had messenger, men, angels. There have been 4 different descriptions of whatever these things are. Actually, a vision was one of them. It's very confusing. It's like switching back and forth.
Well, one of the before I recognize Helene, one of the discussions is Lot the only one who sees these individuals, and that's why the brothers-in-law chuckle. What's going on, and they don't believe him. I don't know. That isn't mentioned. Okay, first Helene, and then Chris.
I certainly don't know because I'm not a scholar like you are in this, but I do have something about angels from my Orthodox family, and the Rabbi Bashem, if you know any Yiddish, Bashem Adonai Elohei Yisrael, and then it says Mimini Michael is one, Musmale Gabriel, Mufore Ariel, and then there's Imofone Raphael, who is Vial Roshi Shechinas Eo. And here is the translation that we had. And God's name is Israel's name. On my right side will be Michael. On my left side will be Gabriel. On front of me, Ariel. And back of me, Raphael, healer of the sick. And on my head is the Spirit of God. Now, these are apparently angels. Maybe you can help me figure it out. What's all this about? The Rabbi, I don't know. It's just something we have. But it talks about angels being with you all of the time. All of the time. It depends who you are and what you believe, I guess.
Oh, Helene,
Yes.
could I ask, what exactly is that from? Because it sounds more like folklore. Is that like a charm for childbirth, or where is this coming from? It's not from the prayers, so it's coming from another.
It's the nighttime. It's the
Steve,
Lahavdil.
the rabbi wanted to say something.
Right.
Oh, okay.
On the contrary, it's a very traditional nighttime prayer. As I lay me down to sleep, I pray the Lord my soul to keep. It's that prayer. It's a very, very traditional prayer. We talked about it, I think, in my Thursday class, where it comes from. That giving the names of whether they're the three of the 4 are specifically identified with these names in the literature. Uriel is like an additional one, but Gabriel, Michael, and Raphael are specifically identified as the 3 in the literature, not in the Torah, but in the literature.
And what about?
But is this formula actually in the Siddur? or is this like Ashkenazi folklore or
Might be.
or a particular group?
It's certainly in the Sidurim that I'm familiar with.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
On Shabbat, there is a song that many congregations start with it.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Shalom.
Right.
But again, Malach is a shaliach, is
Messenger.
someone that has been sent. But you're right, maybe not everyone can see it. And yeah. But in another place that it appears with that kind of is in the Kabbalah. Because we have on the sides, we have Gvura, which is Gabriel, and we have, who's there? Michael.
Michael.
Yeah, so the sources are varied.
Right.
Thank you.
And Steve, Marty, back to your question. The question, Sarah certainly sees and hears these angels or men speaking. Whether again Lot's wife or Lot's other people do is the question. But Sarah does.
Right.
Yeah.
Chris, I think you had your hand up, and then Gail.
Yes, my comment on my question was that when the angels came in through the city of Sodom, the men saw the angels. However, I don't know if they saw them as men, because they say that, let us have the men that they are in your house, or that they are really just looking like angels to Lot because they are salvation from the Malach. But I don't know. It's just kind of got me concerned about what Gail was saying, and it's true. There's so many things that they don't define exactly which one is which. But I know, according to Torah, they did see the angels or the men coming into Sodom.
Do we see those? Do we see what we want to see, or do we see what is actually there? And I think that's a summary of what you're saying.
Exactly. Yeah. And
Yes, Rabbi.
Just a minor correction.
Sure.
The people of Sodom don't necessarily see the men. They have heard that the men are there.
Okay.
Okay. They don't necessarily see them. They go and they say, bring out the men, and we see that kind of an interaction happening.
Okay. Thank you, Rabbi.
Judges and thing later on too. But it's minor. But if we're asking about, are these men visible or hearable?
Right.
It's not necessarily that the townspeople have seen them.
Okay.
They've heard about them.
Okay. Yes,
And
Helene.
there's stories about that. About Lot's wife going and talking about how these famous or these important visitors have come to our house. Out of all the houses in town, they've come to our house.
Uh-huh.
Helene, and then I have 3 comments I wanted to make. Yes,
Sorry for
Helene.
jumping in.
There was one line that I did not focus on. It's the last line in this traditional. Vial rochi shechinas el. And the shechinas, I understand, is a female.
Above all of it.
Above all.
Female, am I right, Rabbi?
Yes.
Yeah. So those could be women, not men.
No. Nice try, but no. No.
Okay.
They're all masculine names.
Okay.
Jerry, go ahead.
I was in a Talmud class in Israel a long time ago, and people ask, is it a malach, or what you call angel, a female or a male? So the answer was that they have one leg only.
One leg?
One leg.
One leg, they're an angel.
Oh, wow.
The only way that we can tell if it's female or male is if they have 2 legs. Am I right?
Right.
Well, think about it.
According to the Talmud, yeah.
In the Talmud, they said, no, the Malachim had just one leg, so we don't know if it's male or female.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Gail.
If they have one leg, I thought angels have one leg because they only have one purpose.
Yeah, yeah.
They need to walk. So the one-leggedness would just sort of back up the theory that they were angels.
That's interesting.
Gail?
Okay, I have a question for both rabbis. Is there a reason that they use different words to describe the same, quote, being? You know, within a verse, they're using two different descriptions. Is there some special rationale for doing that? Is it done on purpose that they keep changing the term or the description? Are we missing something? Is something deeper here, or are we just, you know, I don't know. I'm asking.
Okay, Rabbi Norman.
Well, I don't have, and Miri is certainly welcome to add in. I don't have a one absolutely correct answer. Okay. The simplest answer is, again, this was originally an oral history, a narrator, a storyteller who decided, you know, just as Miri was saying, the words are synonymous. That's entirely possible. Okay? Sometimes we refer to Joe, and sometimes we refer to Mr. Smith, and it's the same individual, just different names for whatever reason. The challenge of Torah study, Talmud Torah throughout the generations, has been to look and see if we see any kind of a difference. And the literature, of course, would be filled with, well, you know, this one, as we're saying, the message might be a little bit different. They might be in this particular interaction, they are seen and heard, but in the other, they're not. I mean, we could go through and look at all the semantic differentials, as they say, between how they're looking. But in my mind, most likely, it's just the way that the storyteller or the original redactor wrote the story without any intentional change in understanding. That's me.
Okay.
I didn't mean to beat a dead horse, but it's always bothered me that there's this interchange of descriptions. So.
Right, and we'll find that frequently. It's between these two terms, but we'll find it frequently. There's you know, other synonyms that show up. So,
Marty?
Hey, Steve has had his hand up for some time now. Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if there's another way to look at this issue we're struggling with, which is, you know, what are these malachim? Are they divine? Are they people? I present this question to the rabbis. Was there perhaps a little bit of an evolution in Judaic thought over time, over hundreds of years, that initially maybe, you know, they were just messengers, and later, you know, with the addition of folklore and other elements, it was a later development that they got names, they were seen as supernatural, because it's been my understanding that Sheol also went through a little bit of an evolution.
Certainly.
You know, it was originally just sort of a dark place. It wasn't really defined as an afterlife, and it was just in much later Pharisaic, I guess, tradition that it sort of, there was more of a sort of textured afterlife, and that sort of went into the early Christian tradition as well. That, you know,
Actually, Greek.
This is a place.
Yeah, but
so could some of this issue with the angels be not, you know, well, let's struggle, you know, what are they talking about? Are they divine? Can they be seen by other people? Well, maybe the view of what they were exactly has changed over time, that it wasn't always
no
the
question.
same.
No question. I think that's a very, very, very insightful point that you make.
Very good. I wanted to comment. There was a comment made before that Lot, it was like an everyday common man. And yes, this is part of a commentary that I have from in Plout, that Lot, he says that Lot is in many ways the average man. He has streaks of greatness, moments of courage, but he is all too often subject to the attractions of comfort and pleasure. And these, in the end, will cause his downfall. He appears in the text for the first time when he decides to leave the security of Haran to follow Abram into an insecure future. Apparently, he is a man of some conviction and initiative, but later, probably attracted by Sodom's influence, he chooses that city as his home, despite its debased condition. Whatever other customs and habits of Sodom he adopts, he preserves his sense of hospitality and decency towards strangers. He risks his own family's safety in order to protect the men who are under his roof. This courage redeems much of his indecisiveness, faint-heartedness, and anxiety, which the remainder of the story reveals. I also came across another commentary on Lot, in which his initial home is believed to be on the outskirts. It's very humble. And then and this dovetails in what was brought up it dovetails into what was brought up, that the home in question is on the town square. And that so he was moving up in the amount of wealth he had amassed, and that he was another commentary was he was assimilating into that environment too much, but he still retained his sense of hospitality. And so that is that's what I wanted to bring into the discussion here, these other commentaries. And then I'll save the other two commentaries for a little later. Any other comments that people want to make?
I think I do.
Yes, go ahead. Yes, Helene.
Over and over, we have said the word home, 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 home. And separation from home, from our earliest years, has been hard. Think about who we are as human beings and what home means to us. And you were talking about the root, and I think it's not surprising that many people simply couldn't move away from home. I just want to say that about home, what it means to you, what it means to me, what it meant to them.
Okay. Now suppose we use the word house.
Oh, it's very different.
Right.
Yes.
Very different.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Don't they
Helene.
say
That's very good.
Don't they say that home is where your heart is? So back again to you. I agree with you. Yeah.
Very good. Very good. Thank you, Helene and Chris.
Just on that notion, I'm racking my brain. I don't think that there's a different biblical word for house and home.
Oh.
I think it's still bait. I not offhand. I can't think of another term.
Isn't that
Maybe my other Hebrew speakers in the room can, but I offhand I don't.
that's interesting?
Okay, Mary, yes.
Yeah, when God tells Abraham to leave, he says from
Sure.
Beit Avicha.
Avicha.
So it's the It's not the house.
That's your ancestral right.
Yeah, so he says, it sounds very much like specific space, because me'artzecha, from your land, please help me out.
Moladitcha.
Umiveit avicha. So that's what we say, and it comes like Beit avicha comes together. So we hear that. So comparing with the land and what you know, in that case is space, leave a space. So it could be here as well and not homey.
Very good. Yes, Larry.
Okay, a home is filled with memories. Now, when we say do not look back, it physically means what is behind you, but metaphorically, memories. And could this not looking back mean just look towards the future, forget about your past and all the memories of home?
That's nice. I like that.
Yes, I like it too.
I think that's going to be important. I forgot, where did we leave off now?
1815, 1915, or 16.
18. 18.
18.
18.
That's what I thought. Okay, so why don't we pick up any other comments at this point? We really covered a lot of ground here. A lot of good discussion. Verse, so I guess we are on verse 19, is that right?
No, 18.
18.
18.
Verse 18. Okay, if somebody would like to read.
I can continue.
Okay.
Okay. Lot said to them, "Oh God, no, I have found favor in your eyes, and you have been very kind in saving my life, but I cannot reach the hills to escape. The evil will overtake me, and I will die. Please, there is a city here close enough for refuge. It is insignificant. I will flee there. Isn't it significant? And I will survive."
Okay. Any comments at this point? Yes, Chris.
I think he's recognizing some of his weakness as he is planning to leave the town, and kind of finding truth in himself that he doesn't really want to leave. That's what he's saying, that he will die if he has to go very far to the hill. He would prefer to stay closer to the place of origin. That's my thought.
Okay. Is anybody want to make a commentary on the way Lot responds to all this?
Well, he's bargaining.
Right.
He's
bargaining for his own life.
His own life. He's not bargaining for others.
No.
In contrast to that of Abraham, which I find of some interest. Yes, I'm sorry, I blanked on your name. Joanne. Okay.
I'm with my Bible, the Catholic Bible here, but it says about Zor. It says, I've lost my spot. Hang on. That a small place is Zor, and the Hebrew word is Misar, M-I-S-A-R, literally. So think of Zor maybe as a very small place, not a huge place.
Yeah, the Hebrews mitzar is pronounced mitzar, and tsar is a very narrow, small
Okay.
small place. And then when it's the name comes to be Tsoar, it's actually with a TS, not just a plain Z. The Tsoar is kind of a play on words of because it was known as a place that had a very, I don't know, could have been a narrow, it could have been a narrow bridge that gets in there or something.
Yeah, the word Zohar comes in Noah. That's what he has on the roof, a light, skylight. It's a
Mhm.
But those of you who knows Yiddish, Sa'ar is Taurus too.
Oh,
Saurus, right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Sarot and
Taurus,
Sarot.
and it comes, that's what he feels, that's what he does, and that's the name of the city. Oy vey kind of city.
Okay, any other comments? Well, why don't we continue reading about the response?
You want me to continue?
21, yes.
Okay. The angel replied to him, I will also give you special consideration in this matter. I will not overturn the city you mentioned, but hurry, run there. I can do nothing until you get there. The city was henceforth known as Sora, insignificant, which means insignificant.
Right.
Right.
You want me to continue? Okay.
Now, what we need to do is point out something that again is somewhat obvious in the Hebrew, but not necessarily in the English. Who is Lot speaking to?
thank you.
Now I know that it says that Lot said to them, but he addresses them as Adonai.
No.
Right.
Adonai is my Lord, and whichever way we want to understand it, either with a small L or a capital L,
Right.
is it just the normal vernacular to address someone politely and say, "No, my Lord, this is the way that," or does he really understand the messengers, the men, as representatives or as the voice of God? So I don't have the answer. I'm just throwing that out. It's a lot more evident in the Hebrew than it is in the English.
Yes, Steve.
Yeah, the place will be called Tsoar. It's with an ayin.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Tsoar. And that is the root for sadness.
Yes.
Actually, as my understanding is, how does that exactly connect with the narrowness that we were talking about?
So
Everything else.
etymologically, it's a contraction from tsar, from the word tsar that just means narrow.
Oh, well, tsar means narrow, but the
Right.
word that's used here is not it's the full word is so
For the name,
with an
right,
ayin.
for the name. Right.
That's why it's Taurus.
Well, except it's not really Saurus. It connects with sadness.
No, Steve.
No, it's
Steve, if you
Tsar.
go back into the end of verse 30.
The end of verse 30.
Right, and you'll see there mitza'ar. That's where the play on words comes.
Mitsuar.
I'm sorry, 20.
Oh.
It's 20. I don't put my glasses on. It's 20, not 30.
That's
Oh,
better.
okay.
Okay, it's such a little place.
Yeah.
Mitza'ar he. Hello, mitza'ar he.
Mitzar.
Yes, Chris has
Yeah.
her hand up.
Okay.
But I don't know if they're still talking about this Zohar. My question here is, was that a consideration on destroying Zohar? Because he says, I will not touch it, and you can go there. So was Lot in a way, because of his disability to deal with the situation, save the people of Zohar?
Sounds like it.
Yes. Or it is another idea that I've had about this is that Zohar is a very humble place. If it's really that small, a lot of it could be saying, I have to go back. I have to deal with it. I am going to a humble location. I don't know, but it says something else about Lot, and keep that in mind, because is Lot trying to convince God that he is going to become humble?
Mm-hmm.
Or is Lot going to go there and then show some of his true colors? I don't know. Okay. Yes, Ruth Ann.
Marty, my commentary here says that the original name was Bela, B-E-L-A is what they have.
That's what my Torah says.
So does that have any meaning? As
I have
far
to-
as, before they changed the name of the town.
So we
Yeah, there were a
defer
lot of
to the-
Italians there, and it was very bad.
Yeah. I don't know regarding this, but there is something here that in the past we spoke about it so much, and is that God needs our help. He cannot operate without us. He says, I cannot destroy the city until you go there. So move yourself, please. I won't say move your whatever, and get there, because I am unable to do anything unless you help me, unless you move as well. That's why they say when they are in Egypt, in Mitzrayim, that God appeared only after they shouted.
Absolutely.
He didn't need that. But here is once more in my mind that it's not for us to sit on our tuchus and wait. We have to move that tuchus and do something. Otherwise, God is paralyzed. That's quite a thing.
That is true.
About.
Okay. It's an interesting way of looking at it, because we're going to see that Lot remains an important part of our story. Okay, because when we get read a little further, we're going to understand another reason why Lot is being singled out, because it's going to enhance our existence later. Do you want to read on, Ruth Ann, or somebody else? It doesn't matter.
Okay.
Okay.
The sun had risen by the time that Lot arrived at Zoar. God made sulfur and fire rain down on Sodom and Gomorrah. There you go, Larry.
Okay, thank you.
It came from God out of the sky. He overturned these cities along with the entire plain, destroying everyone who lived in the cities and all that was growing from the ground.
Okay, let's stop at that point, and then we can resume about Lot's wife. Any comments that anyone wants to make about this, what we've just read? Well, I found in this Forno commentary on the Torah, he was talking about that that geologists have looked at this area and have found two interesting things about the area. One, it's very subject to earthquakes. and also there are volcanoes, extinct volcanoes in that region. And so one of the comments that Sforno makes is that possibly there was a severe earthquake that occurred, and the volcanoes spewing out lava, which eventually cover up the cities, but also if anyone has ever witnessed a volcanic explosion, you can actually from miles away see huge rocks and smoke and rocks being thrown out of the volcano, bouncing down the sides of the volcano. Also, tremendous amounts of sulfur in the form of sulfur dioxide and other fumes. Ash rains down and helps cover up the area. And so his comment is that this may have been what actually happened. Okay, I don't know if we take the story from a spiritual side or from this side. Yes, Larry.
Okay, if we are saying God destroyed the people because they were evil, what's the justification for everything that grew on the ground?
Yeah.
What crime, what sin did crops or trees or plants do to warrant their destruction?
Isn't there something somewhere that you can destroy the people, but not the fruit-bearing trees? They're supposed to leave.
In warfare. Yeah.
There is.
Yeah, but I don't know where that's out.
But there's some extra to this. Miri, I think Rabbi Miri, your hand was up, and Steve, so I'll go in that order.
Bertie, I'm going to contest your answer. You are a scientist. Therefore, perhaps you're interested what really happened there from the point of view of science. But I'll tell you, it was a miracle.
Yeah.
It was the hand of
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
I agree. Now, Suzanne has had her hand up. Let her, and then Steve. Let me do it that way. Yes, Suzanne.
Oh, okay. It occurred to me, well, not today, but some time ago, that this fire and brimstone was really fire tornadoes, which is the rare occurrence, but certainly can generate the type of heat that would be needed to, wipe out. It would have to be a bunch of them, and they occur in a desert arid type environment, which Sodom and Gomorrah was in. So if we're looking for a scientific explanation, I would go with that idea.
Okay, because I think it's interesting here. We can sometimes allow as Rabbi Miri was making a very important point. We can try to use science and scientific explanations and logic to justify what actually may have happened, but that we are still dealing with a spiritual story. And we don't want to have so much science moving into it that we lose sight of the spirituality of Torah.
Mm-hmm.
And now Steve has had his hand up, and then Rabbi, and then Joanne. Okay.
Yeah, just addressing Larry's point, the justification for the complete destruction. And again, and I brought this up before, the purpose of a story is also to really be a story to be engaging, to be a little bit dramatic, to be a little extreme. So it might be, in my maybe simplistic view, overthinking it a little, and being too concerned. It's because, it would be less of a theatrical experience to read this story and sort of get the lessons from it if it wasn't like an atom bomb blowing up and wiping away everything to kind of demonstrate the level of the iniquity. And the other point I wanted to make also is, these are real places which people who have been to Israel, you can walk around in the area of Sodom. It's near the Dead Sea. It's in a very dry area, and it really smells like sulfur all over it.
Right.
So if you've ever been there, you can really buy the story. And I don't think geologically it's changed that much, even over the years. So people hearing this story could say, yeah, I'm buying that,
Okay.
Because wow, it's just sulfur. It's got these, like real
Sure.
strong.
I wanted to let the rabbi had his hand up, then Joanne, then Gail.
Yeah,
I have to keep track of all these hands.
First, on what Steve was just saying, the Torah as we have it is not so comprehensive with all the details. Right. So it is a story, and more importantly, as we know, is to find the moral lessons and the teaching that come out of it, rather than looking at each individual detail that may have been missed. It also may have been that for some reason, it may have been in the text originally, but some redactor decided to leave it out. The other is, back to Marty and Rabbi Miri, it is Sforno doesn't have any difficulty in accepting both a scientific insight here, as well as acknowledging that this is part of God's plan. But the more contemporary interpretation might also add the following: that it's possible, and this is how to reconcile all of the things that you're saying, it's also possible that this volcanic eruption and the firestorm had indeed happened even much previous to this, and the Israelite or the Hebrew storytellers wanted to take advantage of that and add a layer of what's the story, what's the lesson that we can find in this reality of what might have happened. Think of the Noah and the flood. Every culture in that part of the world knew that there had been a flood, but how do you understand it? What caused it? And how did the generations afterwards respond to it? And how did they tell the story?
Yeah. Thank you. Joanne, you're on next.
When I'm reading this, recently we watched a TV. We've been watching a lot of TV recently. I cannot remember what island it was, but it was an island and it had a volcano on it. But every once in a while it would send up smoke. Then it continued sending up smoke. The people didn't leave. And because there was supposed to be this big, huge doings, okay, lots of food, etc. That was important to them. And the volcano then proceeded to go up. Everyone was killed, except for one person. And that person, because he was an agitator and told the people they needed to turn back to God, etc. And he had been thrown in prison. And after he was in that prison for 3 days after the volcano, but people did get him out. And he continued on his way, whatever. But I'm just so reminded of Lot when I'm listening to this and how he was saved from this volcano. by the Holy Spirit, the messengers that showed up ahead of time.
Thank you. Thank you. That's good. So are you saying that sometimes, even though we are told that bad things will happen, in the messages of the pre-eruption of the volcano, the different episodes of smoke coming out of the volcano, that we don't always heed what we're the signs. We don't heed the signs about what is to occur, and then we're bound to experience the severity of that event.
Yeah, I'm thinking he was a scientist of some sort. That was
Okay, but it could also be spiritual. It could also be spiritual.
And it could be spiritual. So I'm not
Yes.
so I just remember one person, but he had warned of this and they threw
Interesting.
him into jail. But this is a true story as far as I know.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, it just pops out at me as I read this.
Gail, you've had your hand up for a while.
I was just thinking about the first time I saw that area. My husband and I were on a bus and we went down to the Dead Sea in that whole area. And my husband turned to me and he said, something sure as hell happened here and somebody should write a story about it.
It's actually, yeah, technically, I think what you're smelling is hydrogen sulfide.
Yes.
It's like rotten egg.
Dramatic.
Rotten
Yes.
egg smell all over the place.
Yeah.
That's right. Yes, Rabbi Miri.
Well, I want to emphasize what Steve has said. The Torah is very hyperbolic.
Yes.
Hyperbolic. And that, as Rabbi said before, this comes from oral tradition in which people are telling the story. Or a mother today will say to the kid, I told you 100 times. The reason I'm saying that this is important because people, when we go along, said, oh, Sarah could not have lived 120 years. And the issue is to read it as, and this is Miri speaking, please, you don't have to buy into it. This is our story, not history. This is our story. And as a story, everything that's told fits in the story. And so it destroyed everything. Everything is, well, wait a second, why the plants were not destroyed if it destroyed everything? But it is an exaggeration to emphasize the size of what's happening. Dibat.
Getting back to that subject reminds me of some of the things that are lumped together in certain other parshas that we're going to read in the future. Okay, and one of which is that the earth being very sacred, and it's tied up in the same parsha with spilling seed. And the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah are tied up in spilling seed and therefore defiling the earth. Because this comes up later, and I wish I knew the exact parsha, but there are two separate commandments about spilling seed and also about the earth. And I'm wondering if this is a way that these people were defiling the earth and the earth had to be cleansed.
Would it be?
I don't know. I'm not sure, but I wonder about that. I'm going to defer that to the rabbis.
Well, maybe.
Yeah,
Okay.
I hadn't thought of the connection. It's an interesting one to pursue.
Okay.
It's what they call it's what we call in rabbinic scholarship. It's a chidush. You know, it's a new way, a novel, at least to us, at least to this group of us sitting here. It's a new way of looking for a connection.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'll save the last thing that I wanted to talk about something I had read just yesterday that has nothing to do with Torah, but it fits into some of this discussion. So if somebody would like to continue reading, we can go on from there.
What verse are we on?
That was
26.
Yes,
26.
26, verse 26.
Somebody else want to take over, or I'll continue? I don't care.
I can read.
Okay, that's fine.
But his wife looked back from behind him, and she became a pillar of salt. And Abraham got up early in the morning to the place where he stood before the Lord.
Okay, let's stop for a second.
yeah.
About the pillar of salt,
Pillar of salt.
Lot's wife looking back. Some comments were made earlier about remembering. Larry, I think you were the one that made that comment. Did you want to expand on that at this point?
No, I think it was Chris about the onions.
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay. You know, remembering the past and looking back, or seeing, you know, what worried about. We spoke about worrying about the other daughters that were left behind, what had happened to them, and any comments at this point? Okay, Ruth Ann, your hand is up, and then Larry.
I was just
and then
thinking,
Suzanne.
we've always been taught that, that the angels or somebody told them not to look back. But I don't see anything in here where anybody is said, is told not to look back, number one. And it does not look like Lot has been full of a lot of information given to his wife or given to anybody. So even if he had the information, did he share it with anybody? I mean, did she look back just because she heard the noise and was curious? I mean, we don't know, but it sure doesn't look like anything was communicated to her that she shouldn't look back.
Right. Only in the book, yes. The angels or God are in this discussion with Lot, and says, "Flee for your life. Do not look back, nor stop anywhere in the plain. Flee to the hills." And so it doesn't mention Lot's wife, as you say. Yes, Larry.
Well, it's not.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, okay.
You called on Larry. Go ahead. That's all right.
No,
Okay,
okay,
Larry.
first of all, another example of someone female who does not have a name.
Again.
Yeah.
Lot's wife. Then also with Adam and Eve, did God speak to Eve about eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil? Parallel there. But also with eating of the fruit of the tree, there was a punishment given if you did. Here told not to look back without giving what are the consequences.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yes, this is another story that you can compare to earlier on in the book of Genesis with the Garden of Eden stories. Yes, yes. Suzanne, Suzanne, is it okay if I let the rabbi comment make his comment
I just,
first?
similar to what Larry was saying in the connection to Garden of Eden. Later on, but most of us already know, Abraham doesn't consult Sarah when there's a major decision to be made about Isaac, their son. That's also a pattern of the Middle East and of this culture. It's just whether he told her or not, just we're on our way.
Okay. Suzanne and then Joanne. Okay.
Don't forget me, Marty.
Okay, I won't, Chris.
No, Susan.
I know, Suzanne, I called on you first. I'm
Okay.
sorry, Chris, I didn't see your hand up before. Yes, go ahead, Suzanne.
Okay, Josephus says that he has, I'm reading part of the verse here. Although God had forbidden her to do so, was changed into a pillar of salt. For I have seen it, and it remains at this day. So Josephus claims to have seen the pillar of salt, and it apparently was still visible when he was alive.
It's still there.
Yeah.
And it's grown taller. She's a very tall woman, right?
Hoodoos. Yes, Joanne, yes. And then Chris.
Thank you.
My question is, I've never understood the pillar of salt. I don't know why a pillar of salt instead of a big log, or something. What's the meaning behind the pillar of salt?
Go to Sodom and you'll see them all over the place.
Yeah.
Right. In Hebrew, the Dead Sea is referred to as Yam HaMelech, as the Salt Sea.
Uh-huh.
So the salt collections and what's the word I'm looking for? Like edifices all over the place, formations.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's.
And
you understand it as sediment or something?
Well, I scientifically I can't tell you what the composition is, but also historically, what we would refer to, and Steve's been saying, and others who have been there, that the smell of the sulfur is very identifiable. In the Hebrew tradition, the area is known as having a lot of salt. Now that may be a generic statement rather than a specific scientific statement, but then the lore, the midrashic interpretations come along and say that that Lot's wife, whatever her name was, she had something like she put lots of salt in all of her recipes and things, and so she was identified with salt, and hence it was ironic that when she was punished for looking back longingly at Sodom, that she became filled with salt.
Yeah.
And this had nothing to do with koshering.
Nothing to do with it.
Okay, Larry has had his hand up. Oh, wait a minute, Larry, just 1 second. Chris had her hand up first.
Yes, thank
Yes.
you. Thank you. And I really love this particular passage because once again, it just reminds me of the faithfulness of God. He said one thing and he is going to keep it. There's no controversy in whatever he said. And he's warning them, which is really beautiful. I am going to do it, but I'm warning you. Don't get caught into the mess. Don't get trapped into it. And I just think that we can take him at face value. We can take his promises as clear as they can be. And so I like that part of this scripture.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Larry.
Okay, from, I don't know if this shows, the women's commentary. Some pillars can be direction markers, offering a guidance or causing us to stop and think about why we are going in a particular direction. We tend to interpret verse 26 to mean that God had turned Lot's wife into a pillar of salt as a punishment. But what if she herself radically chose to become such a pillar, both of memorial and of direction? Memorial of what and direction to whom? Lot's wife was a pillar to her daughters.
Milestone. Milestone.
Okay, Chris.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, it's also like a signpost that says, be careful, you know, be aware. For those people back in those days where they remember that pillar, which I'm sure was among all the other rocks in the area. So it had to be different. It was not, you know, totally looking alike the rest of the area. So I would say that's definitely a warning sign.
Well, how many times have you visited different canyons and the tour guide will say, look at that rock. It has the profile of so-and-so. Well, whether it's the profile of so-and-so and another so-and-so could easily be made, but it's done again and again, and it's a lot of tribal lore will account for that.
Yeah.
So if I just wanted to bring that out. Yes, Ricky, and then Rabbi Mary.
All this talk about the pillar of salt, I keep thinking about a salt lick. You put it out into the field for the cows or the animals.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's such a necessary component of our diet. Unfortunately, many of us eat too much salt now because we're not historic anymore. But so the salt is a very beneficial element here. So I don't know, that's just what was up in my mind, is a salt lick for the animals that are passing through, because they have to retain the water because they're in a desert. Whatever water they get, they got to hold into their body.
Well, one is a rock formation that we've been talking about. It's salt encrusted ground. And so it's really the rock that's facing that. We have to divorce ourselves from how we then came to use salt. That goes back to the time of the Romans.
Right.
And when salt was mined in Timbuktu.
And in
like money.
And then
Yeah.
the Roman soldiers were, instead of being paid in gold,
Right.
they were paid in salt.
Right.
From that, we get the term salt of the earth. And also, you are worth your weight in salt.
And salt.
Not you're worth your weight in gold, I thought.
And you bring home, and a wage earner brings home the salt to his.
He brings home the bacon.
And he is also
salty, and that has replaced the salt in as it's developed over time.
And
So,
Marty, in Latin, salary. Yes. Salary.
Yes, that's right.
You're paid a salary. Which
And
comes
sal
from
is
salt
salt
root.
in Latin. And so, yes, you are very correct. Yes, Mary, you had your hand up.
Okay, I'm going in the direction that I went since the start. First of all, it's kosher salt.
Yeah, he's dead.
But now think for a moment, you know what happens later, right? You do that only Lot is remain and his daughters are remained and the entire world disappears, whatever. We cannot advance the story unless we do that story of she becoming a pillar of salt. She cannot move the story that's going to come ahead. Because the story is about the two daughters and their father, that it's thinking that the world has disappeared. So what I'm insinuing is that it's part of this oral story. It's what I call to advance the story.
Okay. Okay. I think that is a good segue into the next verse. So, so let's now start on 27. If somebody would like to read verse 27.
Yeah, I'll continue. And Abraham got up early in the morning to the place where he stood before the Lord. And when he looked toward Sodom and Gomorrah and toward all the land of the plain, and beheld, and lo, the smoke of the country went up as the smoke of a furnace. And it came to pass, when the Lord destroyed the cities of the plain, that God remembered Abraham and sent Lot out of the midst of the overthrow.
Okay, let's stop there.
Yeah.
Let's stop there. Now here's a very interesting situation. Lot's wife looks back and is turned into a pillar of salt. The next morning, Lot looks back and
No, Abraham looks back.
Abraham.
Abraham looks back. I'm sorry. Abraham looks back and nothing happens to him.
But he doesn't look back.
he
He just
doesn't
looks
look
Doesn't
out.
look back, he's
Yeah, he
looking
doesn't look
towards.
back.
Well,
So the place.
He's in a different location.
He looks at the place that was, that God was there.
are we to make anything of the difference?
Well, God did not speak to Abraham in regard to don't look back.
Right,
And
right. Good point. Yes, Steve.
Yeah, I'm just, again, seeing it more in the light of a dramatic story,
Mhm.
without getting too embedded in the details. I think what Abraham is viewing is the aftermath.
right,
It's sort of the smoking wreckage. It's not the incident itself. And
Right.
also, I guess we've tried to, over the years, the rabbis have struggled to sort of explain why this is a punishment for Lot's wife, what exactly she was being punished for. But again, it may be overthinking in the sense of the dramatic story. It's just, it's not, maybe not a punishment. Maybe it's just another dramatic mechanism to show that what was going on was pretty extreme, same as, the atom bomb over Hiroshima. They weren't evil people, they weren't being punished, but what happened because it was very extreme, and this was a very extreme incident. This person just stayed in her place for a moment, and there was some sort of
Right. One is fleeing
destruction.
and looking back, and the other is afterwards.
But again, that's sort of getting into the, well, what was she being punished for? I'm just looking at the story itself as a dramatic story that's engaging, and that, you know, continued to
Okay.
be a story that was relayed from generation to generation. You know,
Okay, let me give,
if it doesn't have a little bit of drama,
yeah,
it's not going to be a story. It's going to be forgotten.
right. Okay, Chris.
Yes. What about intentions? What about what was really in her heart
There
regarding
you
that
go.
looking back?
I think that's a good point. I think it's important. That's right.
Yeah, because God could only see our heart, or not only see our heart, but He can see our heart. And if she was longing for, I really should stick around that town, whatever, my daughters, my cats, my dogs, the neighbor, whatever, the milkman, I have no clue. But the point is that there was something that she didn't want to completely let go.
Right. That's right. And Suzanne, you have had your hand up.
Yeah. Bill, adding to what Chris is saying, God told, excuse me, God told Abraham that he would not destroy a city if there were 10 righteous people. So I think it's safe to assume that there were not 10 righteous people, but there were a couple. So God's plan then is to remove the righteous people and then destroy the unrighteous. Well, when Lot's wife disobeyed God and looked back, then she herself became unrighteous. So how could God let her survive and no one else from Sodom and Gomorrah? So so that was her outcome, that she lost her life by becoming a pillar of salt.
Very good. Yes, Joanne.
For some reason, I think of salt as a preservative. And it's almost like Lot, like the wife, as she's the preservative of both the old and the new.
You're right. Wow.
Yeah, I just think of her as a preserving. And
Okay. Yeah, she becomes a monument. That's a way of looking at it. Yes.
She's using pickling salt, not kosher salt.
But salt is a preservative. You're right.
You use pickling salt.
no, it's sea salt.
The salt you use, that's a different.
Okay. Let's move on with a little bit. If we want to go to verse 30.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Rabbi, did you have something?
Well, I just wanted to point out when we talk about the biblical Hebrew, and we talk about some of the phrases, and then I was listening to some of the translations that people were referring to for the beginning of 27. It really doesn't. I mean, my translation here is that next morning Abraham hurried to the place where he had stood. The inference or the implication that Abraham hurried there is not really in the Hebrew. So that in and of itself is a comment. Okay? Whoever's translating it that way. Vayashkem is just to awaken in the morning. And that's a phrase that happens with Abraham frequently. Vayashkem Abraham baboker. Abraham got up in the morning and he saddled the ass to go up. It's the same phrase. It's a typical action or behavior for Abraham. So I find it interesting that the translators added in this notion that he hurried to this specific point. Did he hear something? What was going on? As opposed to just, well, here was his normal morning routine. Right. After he brushed his teeth, he walked outside, and there it was.
Well,
question. It's only a question. I don't have a.
Okay, first Rabbi Miri, and then Ruth Ann.
I'll go ahead what Rabbi said. It says, on the contrary, he amad, he was standing there. He wasn't rushing anywhere. But the word that starts on 28 is a not usual word that says, and he saw.
No, by Shkov, yeah.
Yeah, it's not, what word do you have? And he gazed. It's not even gazed. Is to look from really afar. In modern Hebrew, the root of escape is mishkafayim. It's glasses. It's something that he was really far away from this is taking place.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, can we, somebody read verse 30? Oh, yes, Ruth Ann.
I was just going to say, okay, as far as with Abraham and noticing this, I mean, I don't know how far away he was. I mean, he could see stuff. But, I mean, Susan grew up in Pittsburgh, but she was on the north side, nowhere near the steel mills, okay? So did you ever wake up in the morning and smell? I mean, I was between the steel mills, the Coke, factory. I mean, there were lots of mornings, and Pittsburgh was a lot cleaner when I grew up than it was when my mother grew up. But boy, you get up in the morning and you could smell them. So I could see, Abraham getting up in the morning and having this smell that he was not associated with. He did not know, and looking out to see where it was coming from. So that part makes a whole lot of sense to me from my background.
Yeah, no, we couldn't smell any.
No, see, because I was between Hazelwood, so we had J&L Steel at Hazelwood, and then we had U.S. Steel down in Homestead. And depending on how the wind was blowing.
Well, the same in Tucson. When the wind is blowing and there is fire on Mount Lemmon, you can smell it in the town.
That's right.
See the smoke.
That's right.
Interesting. Yes, Bill.
When I lived in northern Ohio, just 9 miles from Lorain, which is on the lake, and that's where the steel mills were. We could smell, and yeah, at night you could see the red glow, and during the smell it. Yep.
And you could smell it.
True. Okay, verse 30. If somebody would like to read. Go ahead, Steve.
30. And Lot went up out of Zoar and dwelt in the mountain, and his 2 daughters with him, for he feared to dwell in Zoar, and he dwelt in a cave, he and his 2 daughters. And should I proceed? This is the part that gets interesting.
That's right. Don't stop.
Okay. And the firstborn said unto the younger, our father is old, and there is not a man in the earth to come in unto us after the manner of all the earth. Come, let us make our father drink wine, and we will lie with him, that we may preserve seed of our father. And they made their father drink wine that night, and the firstborn went in and lay with her father, and he knew not when she lay down, nor when she arose. And it came to pass on the morrow that the firstborn said unto the younger, behold, I lay yesternight with my father. Let us make him drink wine this night also, and go thou in and lie with him, that we may preserve seed of our father.
Okay, let's start.
And this is the part, of course, that gets censored from the Hebrew school version of the story.
Absolutely.
That's right. That's right.
Sunday school.
Any other comments about this?
Yes. Who was it that they thought that Lot would think that they were if everybody else had been destroyed? There weren't any other women around. Because it's the daughters are saying that they don't know, that he won't know who it was. So it sounds like the daughters thought that the father would think that some other woman in bed with them. Who were they supposed to? Where were they coming from? These
They were banking on a complete lack of judgment on his part because he was so, drunk.
Yeah.
He wasn't, thinking things through that carefully.
That's parallel to.
I'm not talking about what he's thinking. I'm talking about how would the daughters think that he would think that.
Oh, well, they're assuming that he will have significant impairment and a complete lack of judgment.
Well, we have that in Noah.
You're right.
The sons, or there is a son that covers him and goes back, but there is the relationship between the father and the sons. And they give him yain. They give him wine. I mean, he is a shikar there.
It's almost a parallel to the flood story, only this is a different type of destruction. While one is water, this is fire and brimstone.
Good point.
Okay, they also represent new beginnings. Okay, that out of all of this destruction, something still is going to come of it. Yes, Rabbi Norman.
It's clear that the text does not condemn them for this act.
For instance,
It's either matter of fact or it's thank goodness they did that because now there will be more people on earth. But I mean, the fact there's one comment that in the Eitz Chaim here that says that since they're not named, it implies that they're being censured. But we don't have most of the women's names from that point in the story.
But again, taking it from the women's point of view here, I mean, to me, here it is that the daughters are costing, or whatever word I want to use there, the father, totally different than the fathers taking advantage of the daughters. They're initiating it, so it's therefore not as
they're initiating it, and in their mind, they're doing a mitzvah.
Yeah, exactly.
So that his seed will continue. It's not to propagate the entire world. It's just to make sure that his line will
like Zelophehad's daughters.
Ideally with a male.
Well, like Zelophehad's daughters wanted the property to keep the father's,
Well,
right.
Yes.
Okay.
What's we're about to read, the next couple of verses are going to answer a lot of these questions as to why these young ladies are not being criticized. So if somebody would like to read verse 36 and all the way through 38.
I gotta get locked. Okay.
Genesis 19, verse 36.
Okay, I'll read. And Lot's two daughters became pregnant by their father, and the firstborn gave birth to a son and called his name Moab. He is the father of Moab to this day. And the younger one, she too gave birth to a son and called his name Ben-Ami. He is the father of the children of Ammon to this day.
Okay, I think something in that translation is lost. Two very important words. If I say Moabites and Ammonites, okay, it may make a little more sense as what is to come. The Moabites, what line is that going to lead to?
Ruth.
Exodus.
Yes. Yes. And I find it interesting because it's going to lead, that story too leads to a new beginning. The story of
Absolutely.
Ruth. And her line is the Moabites. Okay? She's a convert to Judaism.
Yep.
Who's Judaism? I'm sorry, Marty, I don't understand what you're saying.
Okay. One of the children from Lot is going to be called Moab.
Yeah.
And Moab is going to be the progenitor of the Moabites.
Yeah, but you said that in Hebrew. We talk about Israel and we talk about Moab and we talk about Plishtim, we say it in plural, but we say Amalek and we don't say the kids. I mean, we don't say Amalekim. We say Amalek, the name of the father.
That's one way of doing it, but we're going to read in Scripture about the Moabites, and we're going to also read about the Ammonites.
Yeah, Ruth was a Moabite.
Correct.
Right.
We'll say Bat Moab. Okay, fine.
Right. Yes, Larry.
Okay, in Hertz commentary, Moab, the name is explained as though it were the equivalent of Meab, from a father.
Yes.
Ben-Ami, the son of my people, or the son of my father's kin.
Yes. Yes, I have that too in my commentary.
And then it says Bnei Ammon. Yeah.
Correct. We have been the son of, and Ami is the son of my paternal kindred.
Of my people.
My people. So, but the Ammonites are going to come up in Scripture, and so are the Moabites.
Yeah.
Okay, we have to remember that we will come across those, but in later books. Okay, and
there's never a denial that the peoples are all cousins.
Sure.
Oh yeah.
Of whatever degree, but they're all cousins. Right.
We try to convince everyone, and it doesn't work.
Are there any other comments about what we've been reading? What I'd like to do is stop at this point. I just wanted to bring up something archaeologic that I found interesting. In a recent archaeologic article out of Israel, they analyzed some of the residue on the altar, which was one of the altars that the priests would use at the temples. I would assume it was remember, there have been archaeologic digs into and underneath the Temple Mount to try to get to that. Some of those passages and rooms in the ancient temple. And one of the things that they commented on was that the residue found on the altar was also, when analyzed, was that of marijuana.
Cannabis.
Cannabis.
Yeah.
Any commentary on that?
What altar?
That's why they call them the high priest.
Very good.
Very good. No one else could go there.
That was perfect. That was perfect.
Where is this altar, Marty?
Supposedly in the altar underneath the Temple Mount, the current
Oh, the
temple,
Temple Mount. Okay.
which they feel was built over the original third temple.
Right.
So I wonder if this, you know,
You mean
this
Second
is not
Temple?
atypical of other tribal cultures. Especially, Steve, you have experience with this, and I have, but in American tribal cultures, with their, they use other substances to put the drummers into a particular mood, if you will, or state of mind, and dancers. Did you want to make any comments about that? What you had observed?
Oh, you're asking me?
Yeah.
Marty, yeah, it's true. You know, mind altering substances are used, and you know, what you're telling us about the cannabis is surprising. We've always been more or less comfortable with wine
Yes.
as a mind altering substance, but I guess you could try other things as well, theoretically. You know, you know, one does seek another mental state or a different state of consciousness, and that sometimes is perceived as a higher level of consciousness, as a spiritual experience.
Granted, we have to be careful with the report, because just like in what this brings to mind is also what I have seen happen with the different drawings in caves in Europe, and also in petroglyphs that many Native American hold these sites as sacred sites, and some of those have been altered, or newer petroglyphs and markings, and it's been done by people in this age. So I think that before we follow, you know, we swallow this hook, line, and sinker, I think we have to be sure that it wasn't somebody else who just happened to come by and happened to be smoking some pot in that area in more recent times, and just left that on the site. And we come along, and because there's tons of stories like this that have occurred in archeology. Okay, Rabbi had his hand up first.
Yeah, just actually only had one finger up, but that's all right. The I saw, I think it was an ultra orthodox publication that responded to this and said, "Oh no, it's not from the priests of old. It's from some of the volunteers on the archaeological dig." That, you know, that, right?
Yeah. Steve, you had, and your comment.
Yeah. Well, also, you know, just expanding on the theme of mind-altering substances and their use in various religious ceremonies. You know, of course, we traditionally we'd like to view ourselves as being a little more careful, and you know, in our Jewish practices, you know, you're supposed to feel a little happy from the wine, but not get stoned necessarily. And
Except on
me
Purim.
though of except on Purim, yes. And you know, you did remind me. You know, I had an experience when I was in the reserve duty in Sinai. There is a plant there that was used by the local Arabs, I guess probably Bedouin, called Shikaron Sinai. That's sort of called drunkenness of Sinai. And that is a plant. If you make an infusion of it, it's an atropine. It causes
Yeah.
atropine poisoning, and and some of the soldiers, when I was in this reserve duty, it was very boring, and we were just manning an outpost, and checking UN cars and things like that. And so people end up doing kind of stupid things, and so one of them concocted this and flavored it with heavily with meats pedal with this sort of flavoring, juice flavoring, so you couldn't tell what it was. And, okay, luckily they didn't really know what they were doing. So I had some, and it just made me very thirsty. And then kept having more and more, and they thought that was very funny. And all it did, I didn't get trippy or anything. It just, it apparently had an effect that, it widened my pupils. So I had to wear sunglasses, and everything seemed very bright. But afterwards, they really figured out how to do it. And one of the soldiers got very, very sick. I remember from, was hallucinating and was agitated.
Wow.
We were very worried about him. He was seeing,
It's almost like
what kind of animals, but he was seeing little crawly animals. And
it's almost like a reaction to pilocarpine that can cause that. And there are certain,
which was an organophosphate.
yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So like organophosphate poisoning.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd have to
Because
check on that. But this is
side effects of that. Yes, Rabbi Mary.
I'll do it shortly because we're finishing. First of all, we have the kosher stimulants called coffee, and it's a plant. We have all kinds of things that we use. But regarding the Jewish tradition, and actually biblical, we have mor and levona, which are inhaling spices that are used. And they were used in the temple, and the Christians, I don't know whom mess up, and the Christians have that kind of, and
Essence,
yeah, and the essence and the smoke put you in a certain mood, just like music could be. But it was, as you said, a cultural thing, and we have to accept it. That's it.
Okay. Well, any other, yes, Joanne.
Okay, just one question before we discover that Ruth is from the Moabites, but who after the lady that has her father's child, who is the Moabites then? Who is in that line? I know I can go look it up someplace, but
Ruth is. Ruth.
both of them are from.
About the Ammonites.
Well, one's Moabites and the other one is Ammonite.
The Ammonite, right.
And that's opposed to the Ammonites that they sometimes sell in jewelry shops. Okay.
Oh, I have the answer to her question, but I put away my chart.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
No, we encounter some of the Ammonite kings, and their names will be identified.
Yeah.
And the Ammonites are one of the peoples that are indigenous folk to the area of the Promised Land.
Okay.
And,
The question becomes later on when God through Moses gives a list of, here are the nations with which you can interact, here are the nations with which you can intermarry. Where do the Moabites and the Ammonites fit into that list? So we'll wait till we get there.
Sounds good.
That will be at
In the
our
meantime, I'm gonna go look it up.
Probably 7
at
years
our
from now.
rate of progress. It would be at least 1 year from now.
Oh, at least.
Okay, there are synagogues that do it every 3 years, no?
Yeah, we don't know.
Exactly. We're not going anywhere.
Well, Are there any other comments or subjects? Ruth Ann, did you have any?
Just the only thing is no Torah studies next Saturday. We're going to have a Saturday morning service. Norm, pick a day other than Thursday so we can go and see if we can get everything set up at the temple for that.
Okay, we'll be in touch.
Okay. And then Torah studies will continue the following week. So next week, we're actually going to have the weekly Parsha.
Oh,
right?
wonderful.
Gail?
Yes, Gail.
When are the books going to be ready for pickup?
As soon as I get my act together.
Oh, don't rush.
They're ready. They're ready. They're sitting there. I have most of the book plates that Stacy has made up already. I just have to put them in and they're ready. I mean,
good.
Oh, one last thing, Steve, that fourth book that I gave you, I'm really anxious to hear what you have to say about that one when you get into it.
I'm a little scared of books
No.
that I can't get past the title.
No,
So,
believe me, you're really going to enjoy it. You like it.
okay. Aren't you going to give me a clue?
Promise you will like it. Promise.
Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Thank you, rabbis.
Thank you,
Rabbi
Marty.
Norman and
Mary,
Rabbi
come
Mary.
back and join us often.
Please come back. This
Please
was
do,
really
yes.
And I will send you the invitation to the Thursday conversation.
Okay.
Yes.
Steve's doing a lot of work and it's working out very,
Yeah.
very nicely.
Yeah, I'm not sure what my topic is going to be. The last one was Yiddish songs. And
Yeah.
I also did one on Molly Pekin. I did one on Arik Einstein, who I really like. Maybe I'll read one or two for you.
Steve, I
I'll
have a
just have to
question.
think about what my topic's going to be.
Chris has a question.
question for someone.
Do you have anything about Ladino music?
I haven't, but
You-
Steve, I have Chava Alberstein in Yiddish. If you,
Oh yeah, I did have her singing. I'm not recalling. Oh, was it often Pripyatchuk or? It was. I don't remember which song in particular she was doing it, but yes, she does a lot of Yiddish. Yeah, she does. And so she was included in my program.
On that note, I'm going to wish everybody a Shabbat shalom.
Everybody, Shabbat
Shabbat
shalom.
shalom, everybody.
Bye.
I loved it.
I
Bye.
loved it.
Thank you.
I'll
Come
see you
again.
tomorrow, Joanne.